So I wanted to give you an idea of what I go through when I think about designing a space. I've become very familiar with all the different elements because they're critical to how we treat the space. We have our windows, we have our doors, we have to know the flow that goes through the property. We also have some other windows that are throughout the house. Here they have to have specific views, and then we have, in this case, a very specific door for guests that come and stay for dinner, and this is where they'll be accessing the actual deck itself. So that I have to become familiar with. I also have to recall the fact that there's some architectural elements out here that are critical to the design, and they cannot be impeded with. We must respect the architecture that's already there, and those are the 4 posts for the timber frame structure. This is a true timber frame structure that supports the roof. So now I'm looking at my design elements, and here, as discussed earlier, we have the 3 different spaces. We have the kitchen, the common, and then the guest space where the guests will come and enjoy the evening outside. So I'm going to start on the left side here. This is the kitchen area, and what I want to do is I want to provide a privacy screen along this wall. Remember what the program requirements were, and one of them was the fact that we have to have some sort of privacy screen because the neighbor's property, which is down the way, is not very attractive. It's very junky. They keep a lot of their stuff outside. So I don't want to make sure I have a privacy screen. But I don't just want to use a privacy screen. I want something that's going to also incorporate a fixed planter. And this particular fixed planter is going to allow me to grow herbs, maybe some tomato plants. It's beautifully facing south as well as west, so it's going to get plenty of sunshine. It's nice and close to my kitchen area. It'll be a nice addition. Plus, it'll have that foliage and that 3-dimensional context, as well as the softening of elements with plants. And here is where I'm going to have a step that goes down into the rest of the backyard area. So now I'm looking at the kitchen counter. I like this angle. You'll notice that the rest of the architecture is fairly strong and perpendicular, and these posts are very dominant. So I don't want to play off of or work against these posts. I want to pick up another architectural element, and it's this one right here, and this octagonal shape. So I'm going to try to incorporate some of that in my design. I don't have to. I just like to because it was part of the architecture. So the kitchen area will include this angular kitchen space that will have the counter. Now, one of the things I'm thinking ahead of is not only how the sun angle is going to be, but also how people are going to use the space. So what I've decided is this. I'm going to have an upper and lower deck. And by having the kitchen counter along here, what it allows me to do is actually have 2 different levels of countertop. So this is my standard work level, which is 2 feet wide in here. But along here, I'm going to make it 3 feet wide. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's also going to be an eating counter for people that want to sit at the lower deck level. So I can either have something that will extend outwards along here or have part of the counter. So this is a countertop that allows people to actually sit and enjoy eating snacks or something that we're providing before dinner or after dinner, or just to be outside. So this is kind of a nice little space, and I've utilized the fact that we have 2 different levels. This is going to be a very sunny spot, and as I mentioned to you earlier, it is where I'm going to incorporate stairs. So I have a nice wide staircase here, but I'm also going to do this. I'm going to put in another planting bed here, and this will be a fixed planter along here, and that fixed planter is specifically designed to allow me to have nice tall plants in here to provide some extra shading in through this space. So as I'm working in the kitchen space, I'll have some shading from the direct sunlight. So I've got some stairs that will come down here. There's 1 riser, there's 2 risers. Perfect. And this will be a nice little space for people to walk in and out. You'll notice it's not overly accessible. I can actually angle that staircase if I wanted to, and then that way make that stair a bit more interesting. It's something that is available to me, or what I can do is simply, as I've done here, put in a tread. Because it's not a formal staircase, I can make this really any shape I want. So rounds around that particular corner, or I could have tied it off onto that corner. There's so many different options here that I have available to me. So let's continue on with the deck that we have here. So there's my common area. I want to make sure that I can fit in a proper table. So I'm going to pencil in right now a table setting, and it should be approximately so wide. Okay, and I'm going to make this something like this, and I can actually find tables online that have a slight sort of chamfer to them, and this may look really nice in this space in here and still provide enough space to walk around it. And there are my chairs for this space in here, and along here, and along there. So this is a nice little space that kind of reflects off the back of the fireplace. Still gives me room to walk around. As I mentioned earlier, I can have some stools here to use this as an eating space as well. And not only for guests, but also for people that are actually living in the house as well. Maybe they don't want to sit formally in here where we have this large umbrella through here, but maybe they want to sit along the counter here. And when I'm looking at this, this would be a nice spot in here for the actual barbecue. Have a sink that goes along here. And because I've made this counter a bit wider, I have lots of workspace around here. Maybe have a bar fridge underneath that. So this seems to work pretty well. Good. Now I'm going to focus on the space beside it where we're looking at the dining room area or the guest area. So again, I'm going to play off that diagonal line. I really like that, and it frames this chair and table setting really nicely. And this is where I'm going to have a transition zone from the dining room into where I want them to sit. Now let's take a look at all the different pieces of this space. This is the kitchenette dinette area. So this is the kitchen dinette area. This is the great room. So there will be couches and they need their views. And then this is our formal dining. And this is where, like I said, I need to step down into this space. Okay, when I have guests and I'm thinking about this from their perspective, there is a step that steps up to the dining room area. So I'm going to need a step that steps down. So I'm going to bring it right out here. I'm going to make a really large, oversized step. I'm just going to build that right on top of the deck so it doesn't require additional framing or anything like that. And I'm going to build in a couple of planters right along here. I like that idea only because it frames out very nicely when people come out of the dining room and onto the actual deck surface. And I can have some nice annuals in there with lots of floral bloom, so it really decorates this space here. And along here is where I'm going to put my handrail so nobody falls off the deck. This may already be tall enough depending on the height of the planter. So if the planter is high enough, I don't need a handrail up in there. I'll just need a small one in through there because this is a step up. And it will look very nice and kind of frame that off. Remember I mentioned in one of my presentations, I don't like a lot of handrails. They really detract. Much rather use screening or planters or things like that to suggest where people should go. All right. So now I want to work on my lower deck area. And the lower deck area in here, I'll continue that line out here. I'll come along here. And then I'm going to, again, play with this diagonal line and then play with this line. So it still is a very simple shape, but because of these angles, it's made it very interesting. Now I'm going to go to the next step and add my pergola. My pergola is something that's really important in providing extra shade and coverage to the individuals that are going to be enjoying this deck. So the pergola shape itself, I'm going to have a post here. I'm going to have another post here. Again, very much aware of how much space I require for this project. And then I'm going to make another post somewhere down here. And the other one there. You notice I'm not even thinking right now about the framing. We're going to deal with that. We design first and then frame afterwards. So this is my pergola. This is the outer edge of the pergola at the roof line level or at the top line level. And it's just to give me an idea that where does it sit relative to my deck. And it's all on my deck. There's nothing that's going to be hanging over my deck. This roof line, again, this is all approximate. I know the areas based on these little 2 foot by 2 foot squares, but this works out well. Let's see how the furniture would sit in this and what else I could do with it. Well, this may be a nice spot along here for a large two-seater couch, so people can enjoy that. Again, we're trying to keep in mind the scale and proportion. This would be a nice spot here for a nice big tub chair. And then I can have another one somewhere over here. And that looks right. Good. And then this would be a perfect spot for a coffee table. So what else could I do in here to make this interesting? Well, I think what I'm going to add to this is another planter. And in this case, the planter itself will be a fixed planter built right into the deck. And it will be somewhere around here. And the reason I want to do that is this. I have to be mindful of the sun angles. And what we're going to do here is to make sure that those sun angles, we're providing some relief. This here to this here is that, let's say 12 o'clock to 1:30, the real tough hours of the sun. I want to make sure that I'm providing some sort of plant material here to provide additional shading into this space. This works out well. So if we have guests in the early afternoon, they can sit here comfortably in the pergola and not bake because they have a southeast exposure. What else do we have in here which really works out well? Well, look at this. I'm always considering the views. These seats in here still have the beautiful views that are in this direction and that direction. They can still see all those different views. If I'm standing here, I still have a nice idea of where that view is. I can see all the different parts of the deck. It looks really awesome. I'm very happy with that. What about down here? Yep, same sort of thing. Anywhere I'm sitting on the bar stool, I'll have those beautiful views. At the table, I'll have those views. At the couch, the chair. The only one that doesn't have is this chair. It backs to the views, but that's only one out of all the different places or spaces that we have here in the project. So I'm really happy with the way this layout has come together. And look at this. It's a nice little entertaining direction coming out of the dining room, stepping onto this large platform. 2 or 3 people could stand there. They can enjoy the foliage I have here. Again, I'll have planting material in this area. I'll have planting material in this area. Planting material in this area and planting material in this area. So it's nicely encompassed. And you know, it's something that I could have a taller bush or a tree, a smaller tree in here to really provide some neat little shading and some windbreak and sun break, and same within this location here. And this provides just a nice sort of access way through here for my guests. I want to make the space interesting, yet not take away from the architecture. I've got 2 dominant elements creating this shape. There's nice flow throughout this. I've got lots of room from the kitchen flowing into the outdoor kitchen area as well as the herb garden. And now I'm going to briefly consider the deck and how it's going to sit. I'm not going to do anything too unique because that's going to take away from the design. The shape actually provides some uniqueness to it. I may outline just where that kitchen area is by providing some sort of banding, but the actual deck itself, and I'll do the same here where all around the edge I'll have a band just to outline the edges of all the different elements. So that'll have a band and that'll have a band. What I mean by banding is that's the wood that's going to go around the perimeter, and then the regular decking is going to go in that direction along here. I'll have a band along here to outline the tread, a band along here, and I like the way this has turned out because once again along the pergola I'm going to have all my deck material coming off of that, and it'll highlight that step, and if I have the couch there, it's going to show that off really nice. And I'll have a band along here, and that will be my decking along that direction. Beautiful. And I'm going to do the same down here. I'll have a band, and that will make sure that nobody sees the end grain of all these deck boards coming in at one angle. I'll have a band, and then obviously this goes in this direction, and there are my deck boards in this direction. It's a simple decking plan. In this space, I may want to consider decking in a different direction, but that really requires extra blocking So maybe just as simple, let's do a double band in the kitchen, like that, and then continue the decking in the same direction. And that will look like a workspace for whoever's working within the kitchen in the flooring. It makes for a nice unique pattern. So hopefully this helps you with designing, sort of thinking about the space. Once again, once you've done this, make sure it fits the criteria. Each one of these is 4 square feet. So if you do some quick math, you can discover how many square feet your project is. Once again, this is meant as demonstration. These are ideas. I do not want your plan to look like this. This is my plan, not yours. So make sure your ideas are unique to you and they're completely different from anything that you've seen here today.